Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to be doing engagement training with a young Collie puppy. I'm going to talk a little bit about timing and why this step is so important in the dog training process. It's been scientifically proven that we have roughly 1 second, give or take, to influence a dog's behavior. That means when your dog is doing something that you're trying to capture, you have 1 second to let the dog know if it's a behavior you would like them to repeat or if it's a behavior you would not like them to repeat. And if that reward or the correction doesn't come within that window, the dog won't make the connection. So when we're teaching our dogs a behavior, we have 1 second when they complete the behavior to do one of two things. Either A, we can give the dog the primary reinforcer, which is food, toy, or affection, or B, we can let the dog know they're going to receive the primary reinforcer, and this is by implementing the condition reinforcer, also known as a marker, also known as a bridge. So what is this condition reinforcer, this marker? It's a sound that predicts a reward. You teach your dog that a certain sound always means a reward. Eventually, the sound becomes almost as powerful as the actual reward. You also have to keep in mind, if you are using your condition reinforcer, so a sound that predicts a reward, if you use that sound, you always pay your dog with the primary. Look at it like a paycheck. A paycheck is valuable because it always predicts a primary. If you're working for somebody and those paychecks that they are paying you start to bounce, you may stop working because you're no longer getting that primary reinforcer. So don't let your paychecks bounce. Now, when we're conditioning our dog to the marker, we're going to be focusing on a couple things. Number one, you want to do your best to try to make sure that your marker sound, whatever word you decide to use, always sounds the same. It's easy to think about how clickers were so successful. Number one, the click always sounds the same. So with your voice, try to make sure your yes or your good or whatever sound you're using sounds the same. So yes, 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 not yes, yes, yes. You don't want to change it. You want to make sure it always sounds the same. I like to use 2 words for my markers that predict rewards. I have my yes and I have my free. My yes is my continuation marker. My free is my terminal marker. Well, what does that mean? Because this often confuses people as well. Easiest way to think about what a word means to a dog is what it predicts. The continuation marker equals reward. That's it. Primary reward, food, toy, or affection. So if I say yes, my dog is going to get either food, a toy, or affection. I like to reserve my markers though for food and toys. That tends to be more valuable to most dogs because we pet them all the time. So really food or toys. And most of the time in the beginning, I'm using food. So yes means food or reward. Free, on the other hand, the terminal marker, and again, you can use whatever word, whatever sound you want to use for these markers. That means release and reward. So if I say free to a dog, I'm telling the dog that's the correct behavior, you are released from that behavior, and you can receive a reward. There's going to be times where you want to use both markers. Now, we also have a release word. A release word is a sound that releases the dog from the position, but it doesn't predict a reward. And because of this, it's just a release sound. It's not a release marker. So keep that in mind. A marker is only a marker when it predicts a reward or it predicts a correction. So a marker could predict, you did a great job, here's your reward, or don't do that again, no, you're going to receive a correction. So it can go for good or bad. The release word, on the other hand, just means you're released. So again, it's not a marker. I use all done and I use break for my release words. Now, when I'm working with the puppy, I want the puppy to look up at my face in order to get the rewards. This is why it's called engagement training. The more engagement, the more focus you can get from your dog while training, the faster they're going to learn. So the puppy's going to look up at me, I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to reward the puppy. Once the puppy eats the food, he looks at me again, I'm going to say free, then I'm going to move back, encouraging the puppy to jump up and get the reward. During the training process, when I say yes, I bring the reward to the dog, and when I say free, I move back, encouraging the dog to come and get the reward. That teaches them that free is release and reward. Now, once they're conditioned to these sounds, we no longer have to move back. This is another common question that I've had in some of my videos. If your dog is conditioned to the word free, and let's say you tell your dog to down. Once you lure your dog into the down position, you say free, you can hand the food directly to your dog while they're still in the down. You don't have to make them jump up to get the reward, as long as they're conditioned at that point and they understand that it means release and reward. So you can hand them the food and they can jump up. So now, what applications or what value is there to having these 2 markers? Well, the continuation marker is often called the continuation marker because if you're working on a stay, sit, stay, down, stay, climb, stay, whatever it is, you use the continuation marker because you're telling your dog, that's correct, I'm going to give you a reward, but I'm not releasing you. It just means you're getting a reward. So you're able to reward the dog multiple times for doing a long stay when you're first teaching them that stay command. The terminal marker is very valuable for a few reasons as well. Number one, if you're not ready to reinforce the stay, then you use the terminal marker. So if I'm starting to teach a dog the verbal command and I say down and that dog lays down and I don't want to reinforce a down stay, then I'm going to use my terminal marker free. I'm letting the dog know that's correct. You don't have to stay there, you can jump up and get the reward. So it helps when we're not wanting or not ready to reinforce the stay. Another reason that makes the terminal marker so valuable and why I use it so much in the beginning is because it also teaches the dog the faster they get into the position that I'm asking them to perform, the faster they get to jump up and get the reward. And they tend to do it more quickly. Speed for our dogs is based on motivation. And this really helps increase our dog's speed. Now, when teaching these markers, we have to make sure that there is a pause in between the sound and the delivery of the reward. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the food, I'm going to show the puppy that I have the food, and I'm going to hold it by my face. Once the puppy looks up at my face, I'm going to say yes. Then I'm going to deliver a reward. In the beginning, we hold our hands by our face. We know that the dog is looking at our hands because the dog knows that the food comes from our hands. So we get them used to looking up at our face by holding our hands by our face. After we say the sound, you have 1 second before you have to start moving to deliver the reward. Meaning, I say yes, once I'm done saying yes, I have 1 second before I have to start to move to deliver the reward to the dog or the puppy. So I go yes, and then I can start moving, as long as that movement starts before the 1 second. This is only during the process when we're conditioning them to the markers. Same with the free, I say free, and then I have to start moving back within a second after I say free to get the dog conditioned. If you wait too long, then the dog's not going to become conditioned. Or if you say it and you move at the exact same time, they're not going to become conditioned. So if you go yes, they won't become conditioned. Or if you go yes and you wait too long and you reward, they're not going to become conditioned. So it's that window, yes, and then reward. What helps a lot of people is to actually say the marker twice and then deliver the reward, but say it in your head. So go yes, yes, reward, but don't say it out loud. Go yes, reward. So in my head, I'm going yes, yes, reward. That's usually the perfect amount of timing in order to get the dog conditioned to the reward or the marker. Once they're conditioned to the marker, this is another question that I ask a lot of people. How long do you have to deliver the primary reinforcer to your dog after you said the marker? So when you say yes, how long do you have to get that reward to your dog before you lose the connection? Most people say 1 second. That's not the case. If the dog is conditioned to the marker, you have as long as they are paying attention. So if you have your dog 30 feet away from you and you tell your dog sit and your dog sits and you say yes and your dog's conditioned to yes and he knows he's going to receive a reward, once you say yes, your dog goes, oh, I did it correctly. You start walking towards your dog's going, oh, here comes the treat, here comes the reward. He sees you reach your hand into the treat bag or whatever it is that you have. He sees you pull out the treat, he goes, there's my treat, I'm getting paid, and you hand him the reward. You made the connection. Even though that reward came way after the behavior you were capturing, your dog knows whatever he or she was doing when they heard that sound is what they're being rewarded for. You're gonna see how these markers are gonna come into play throughout the entire training process. Another common question that's often asked is, do I always have to give my dog a ton of rewards when training? Do I always need treats? Is this something, if I start training my dog with treats, am I always going to have to need treats when training? No, we start with treats in the beginning. We start with continual reinforcement, meaning we reward every single behavior. But once the dog starts to do the command on the verbal alone, so I say down, the dog lays down without that help of the physical cue, then I start to space out the rewards. I have a video explaining exactly how to do that. But remember, dogs always need to know the WIFM. What's in it for me? Contrary to popular belief, dogs don't do things just to make us happy. They do things either to access something pleasant, prevent something unpleasant, or the behavior it's fun. Now, if you teach your dog that training with you is a lot of fun and they love that, then they will start to train with you just because the act of training with you is fun. But in the beginning, most are going to need a little bit of encouragement, whether that's with food or it's going to be with toys. I like to start with food because we can use luring, we can use shaping in order to teach a bunch of different behaviors to our dog. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into this training session. I'm going to show you exactly how you're going to get your puppy or your dog conditioned to these markers. All right, so we're going to be doing engagement training with Spock here. Spock is a young Collie puppy. Now remember what I talked about. The sound has to come before the delivery of the reward. So I get his attention. I bring my hands to my face. Yes. then I reward. Notice there was a slight pause between saying the marker yes and delivering the reward. It has to be yes, reward, not the common mistake that most people do. Yes. You see how I moved at the exact same time as I delivered the reward? If he's gonna take it, it seems like he's chewing the other piece still. So again, we have to make sure that we say the sound before we deliver the reward. That's the only way the dog's gonna become conditioned. So now I'm gonna show you a quick engagement training session that I like to do with a dog so you can see what it looks like without me constantly having to communicate back to the camera. All right, so here we go. Yes. Good job, buddy. Very nice. Free. Come on, good boy. Very good. Oops, we dropped a piece. That's okay. He doesn't know. Yes. Reward. Good boy. Very nice. Free. Movement. Pay attention to the pause. Pay attention to how I'm saying the marker. It always sounds the same. Yes. And I'm not worried about him doing any sort of commanded behavior. I just want him looking up at me. Free. And then we move back. This is the first step. Now, most dogs don't need much beyond this when it comes to engagement training. Yes, but if you want to go above and beyond, or if you plan on doing a focus heel or competition style obedience, then you want to get the dog or the puppy to understand it's looking at your face. Yes, and not just looking at your hands that's getting the reward. So the way that I do that is I start exact same way I would. I bring the food up by my face and then I move one hand out. He follows the hand. When he looks back at me, yes, then I mark and reward. And then I do the same thing with the other hand. I bring that hand out. I wait till he looks at me. Yes. When he looks at me, I mark and reward. Then I do both hands. Yes, and then reward. So that's showing him it's looking at my face that's getting the reward and not just my hand. All right, so we're gonna do a couple more. Free, and then we move. Also notice how I change hands. Yes. Reward. Good. Very nice, buddy. Free. Reward. Excellent. Good. Yes. Notice the pause again. Free. Very good. Now, I like to continue this until the dog becomes conditioned to the marker. How do we know when a dog's conditioned to the marker? Well, the same way Ivan Pavlov knew his dogs were conditioned to the markers, that whole classical conditioning. When the sound went off before the food was delivered to the dogs, they would begin to salivate before the food was present. And again, that's what he called classical conditioning. The four most common change of behaviors I see in a dog that's conditioned to the marker is opening their mouth, salivating, licking their lips, or moving their paws. So if I think a dog is conditioned, I'll get them in front of me, let them scratch, do what they gotta do. And then once they look at me, I say the marker, yes, but I wouldn't deliver the reward right away. I would watch to see if there's a change of behavior. Yes, if I see a change of behavior, I know the dog's conditioned to the markers. Now, usually I'll do this for a day, maybe two. Most dogs will become conditioned pretty fast to these sounds. But before every training session, I like to spend 15 to 30 seconds on engagement training because it gets our dogs engaged. And the more engaged your dog is, the faster your dog is going to learn what's expected of them. So now I'm going to show you a quick little exercise that I'm going to be doing. This would be my second step in the training, but I want you guys to see what a training exercise might look like with a brand new young pup. So he's over here trying to get into the bag of food. Come here, big guy. Come on. Yay, good boy. And so with him, he's following my hand already really nicely, so I can start luring him into different positions. When I'm luring a dog into positions, I'm not saying the position that I want the dog to perform. I'm simply showing the dog a physical cue, and in this case, we're using the food to get them to do the behavior. The moment they do the behavior, I can mark and reward. Here's another thing to keep in mind. When we're doing luring, we have to let, oh, is this a little high for you? Is it a little high? Come on, you can do it. Oh, he climbed up and didn't realize how high he was. Let's help him out. Here we go. Oh, there you go. You did it, little super dog. Nice work. When we're using luring, so if I lift up, watch his butt hits the ground, I can give him that food within a second of him completing the behavior. Same thing with the down. Any command that I'm trying to get him to perform, come on, buddy. By using luring, we can just give him the reward once he's in the position, and we make the connection. However, it is good to practice always using those markers. So it would look like this. Yes, reward. And since he's not in a commanded position, yes, during this step, I could use yes, or I could use free. Free, good job. If I want him to come to me, come on, buddy, 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 buddy. Very nice. Yes, oh. There you go. Yes, very nice. Get him to come into heel position. But this is how I would do an early session with this guy, because right now he's not ready for commands, but he's good with the markers and he's good at following food. So I can start showing him all these cool little things I can get him to do with luring. Now, what I recommend before putting any sort of command on a command, like before you say down, make sure you can get your dog to do the command with that physical cue the way that you like every single time. And once you have that perfect picture, then you can move to naming a command or putting the behavior on a command. So for this next week, all I'm mostly going to be doing with this little guy is engagement training and teaching him how to get from one position to the next using that concept of luring. I'm also going to show him a few other things, but it's all basically going to be luring. So if you're starting and you're working with your puppy right now or a brand new dog, start doing this. Take your time. Don't rush it. Get it to where it feels like a dance, where you start to do something, boom, your dog already knows what you want him to do because you guys are so in sync with each other with the training, and it makes everything go so much more smoothly. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Of course, as always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.